Good evening, TheoTrade. This is Corey Rosenblum, and you're watching the Theo Nightly video for the 12th of November, 2019, which means November is almost halfway over. We'll have that halfway point a little bit later in this week. And also Thursday, we'll kick off the end of the major companies reporting for this quarter's earnings season. And that's going to be Walmart. But there still are trades to be made, earnings plays, and maybe some butterflies. What I want to start us off with today is something quite interesting, something you don't see every day and something you see quite rarely, which is exactly split down the middle, 50-50 in terms of the advance decline. So what we're looking at here is a market watch tab with visualize and the index watch of the S&P 500. And we're seeing here that 248 stocks or issues were positive on the session. 247 stocks were negative on the session or declining. The volume, roughly the same. And the put call ratio is just about the same in those as well. And that led to the AD-SPD, which is our advance decline that we reference so frequently, of -3. So that is kind of interesting. That means that, in terms of today's session, even though there was a little bit of movement, just about the same number of stocks closed the session positive as negative. And a market check for this Tuesday's market update. Roughly speaking, the S&P is flat, so is the Nasdaq, so is the Dow, and the Russell. We had a wide range day. We can also take a look at our S&P 100, which is maybe the little bit larger market cap names. And that's 56 of those S&P 100 names advanced. The biggest advancer today was Facebook, joined with Altria, and we have ABB, which is AbbVie Labs, Abbott, and some others in terms of Amgen as well. The biggest loss of the day was Target, which was a downtrend candidate. So we'll take a look at some of these. And again, here's your biggest gainers in the S&P. I guess we can see it two ways. The first way is, again, these issues or these numbers and the AD line and the size of the histogram. We can pull out some candidates from that or just look at the percent gain. And then we have Facebook. Disney. Oh, don't forget Disney. Disney is launching their Disney Plus Netflix killer or Netflix program. We'll see how that plays out. We'll closely be watching Disney shares against Netflix shares because their streaming service is live as of today. Otherwise, Lockheed Martin, there's Altria, Starbucks, which is up about 1%, and Merck. On the downside, there's Target. We just saw it a second ago. Target, Fox, ExxonMobil, and we have Simon Property Group, ConocoPhillips, and Oxy, Occidental Petroleum. The other ones would be Caterpillar and Boeing. This way we get a sense of, at least at the end of the day when you're doing homework or getting your trading plan ready for the next trading session, it's helpful to look at which stocks stood out in the session and at least make a note of those. You might not trade them, but that gives us some ideas to go forward with. Again, this is today's session on the intraday frame where we had an initial up move in the morning. 3,100 happens to be a new all-time high, but this one occurred without the fanfare, without the confetti, and without those S&P 3,100 hats you might see on TV. And we had the market fade, fall, and trade back to the opening price, and then push a little bit higher. So even though you had a little bit of a bullish advance, at least in the S&P, here's your Nasdaq, here's the Dow futures, and that's flat, and the Russell on today's session. Kind of quick update, crude oil continues to struggle beneath 58 per barrel. That's a short sell target. Gold had a V spike or a bullish intraday reversal. And that's going to correspond with bonds. ZN, a little double test or double low into our 128 index target. ZB is your 30-year. That's going to close up on the highs. That's something to watch as well. And if you trade TLT, with the exception of the morning spike, that V spike in gold, it actually was a trend day to the upside. So it's just one more way to say stocks are overbought. Actually, let's compare those on the intermarket update grid. to see how we are playing these. As mentioned in today's sessions, 58 is the overhead resistance for crude oil, as is 3,100 for the S&P 500. Gold had a bearish break, little bull trap, and initially broke a triangle or compression to the upside, did not hold the gains, and went the other way to the downside, giving us a couple of trend days or range expansion events on the short side or the bear side. And that was the same time, if you see it similarly, that bonds also gave a little trap and then went the other way. In the grand scheme of things, we're seeing what we call a risk-on behavior. Let me draw that quickly. Risk-on behavior means money's flowing into the equity market, into crude oil, out of the risk safety or the protection of gold and bonds. So that's the risk-on play. And how we look to the future, will this reverse or keep going? That's how we'll position and trade the remainder of this week. In other words, a shift of protection, which may be a little bit overdue at this point, to the downside in stocks, no target necessarily, just a little pathway. To the downside, that may take us to 54.50 in crude oil, and some type of bullish play up in gold, and then subsequently up in bonds. Again, that's not going to target levels, just talking about the idea of the price movement within these markets. So let's go to the daily charts and take a look at some of the candidates that were giving us big outsized moves today. First up was Target. That is maybe forming a little compression pattern or a resistance sideways play into 110 per share and roughly 105. Simon Property Group, ConocoPhillips, just to name a few. On the upside, if you want to see what's advancing, the big surprise of the day, I think, was Facebook. And Facebook, on the weekly perspective, is again into this overhead resistance play into 200 per share. On the daily, we can see an initial pullback. We had a video last week about these resistance plays. Facebook was one of them, and it was a short sell candidate into roughly 197 and 198 per share. That gave us 1, 2, 3, 4, almost 5 sessions of downside activity since the video, but today just knocked it all out the window with a bull trend day and a bullish outcome. So Facebook shares do remain within a sideways trading range, and we'll be watching this extremely closely. Otherwise, Disney, we just discussed it, which is showing another sideways trading range. So bullish news, bullish earnings, and bullish outcomes into this predetermined target, which is 140 per share. Lockheed Martin continues an uptrend after initially pushing a little bit lower into 370. So Lockheed continues to be on our trending list. And then we have the opposite with Altria, which are a MO stock symbol, MO Altria, which is a downtrend that is possibly reversing up. So watch these key levels. Starbucks is one we're again watching off of the 200-day simple moving average. That's just a target to watch for plays. Other names would include additional candidates on the trending stock list or your own candidates from there. And then we'll finish up by looking at the S&P 500, which again is defying the odds and pushing on higher in a short squeeze. Similar to these prior examples, where it just sure felt like the market was overbought, overextended, divergent. Any day now, it's going to do a risk reversal or a short sell play, and eventually those did come to pass. Took a little bit more patience than some traders had maybe, and we're maybe feeling that way again as we push into the middle of November. So this is at the top, not quite, on and on till we did get a sell swing. And again, the play or the time to put on those protective plays is into these extended areas. And we had a nice clean reversal pattern against 3025 in September and October. But this time, not so much. We are seeing the bull trend continue, the bull market continue, and a series of upside gaps, which is short covering, or bears stopping out initially. So we still look for this pullback to continue, or pullback to develop. We'd like it to continue as we watch these levels. Right now, it is simply 3,100 in the S&P futures. Beyond those, the Nasdaq gives us roughly 8,300 in the Nasdaq futures, and about 27,700 in the Dow. And that Russell keeps playing against our 1,600 level. Keeps on potentially forming a sell swing, but it's not giving up the ghost just yet. Still, we watch this resistance level, and we'll finish up by looking at our expected move grid. And for the SPX, or the S&P 500, we're right where we were Friday. And we have the upper level. If you get above this 3,100, we'd be looking for 3,125 as an upside target. Beneath that, 3,060. So we are looking for any type of continuity or bullish action to push the market to that level, which has been the case last week, the week before that, and actually really back to October, the start of October actually. As always, be careful and safe. This is Corey Rosenblum with your Theo Nightly Video for the 12th of November, 2019.